Welcome, everybody, to the flagship podcast recap from Kyle Field, a historic 17-7 win by the Texas Longhorns in a rivalry renewal with the Texas A&M Aggies. And Eric, he is Eric Henry, of course. I'm Chip Brown of horns247.com, and we're among the last sole survivors here at Kyle Field. So we're going to try and get this in as quickly as possible before they kick us out of here. Eric, this was the first time these two 130-year rivals had met in 13 years, and Texas dominated this game really from the beginning. Defensively, they were outstanding all game long. The first half was a heroic effort from Quinn Ewers, who was converting one third down after another. He hit a couple deep balls to Matt Golden, to Ryan Wingo. Didn't quite finish all the drives, but 17-0 at halftime. Things are looking good. Another third quarter meltdown, Eric. It was a 93-yard pick six, of a tipped pass, a 93-yard pick six, a fumble by Quinn Ewers, a blocked punt in the fourth quarter. And yet this Texas defense never allowed the Aggies offense to score a point in this game. Eric, your thoughts?
Chip, can we finally put the question to bed as to whether or not this Texas defense is legit? Because I know that was the question that I got during the week. Well, this Texas defense, they've been up on a bunch of, mid-level, second-rate SEC offenses. It's fine if you want to play that game, Chip. I will say I do wonder when all of a sudden, or I should say when and why, this is the year now when the SEC all of a sudden, it doesn't mean more, right? Now, this is the year when we want to say, oh, well, you played such and such offense and they aren't good. Because at last I heard, every other year when we're talking about the SEC, it's, oh, well, the 5th, 6th, 7th place SEC team could go walk into the Big 12 or go walk into the ACC and leave with a conference title, right? So I'll put that minor quabble aside, because there seems to be a level of nitpicking with Texas's SEC schedule this year. But as I said, you can put the question to bed as to whether or not this is a legitimate defense. They just showed it, right? Defensive tackle Alfred Collins in the postgame was asked if he believes this is the best defense in the nation. He said yes. And for those of us like Chip and I who are around AC on a regular basis, AC is not someone who's going to come out and, just speak brash words, right? That's not really his style. So for him to come out and say that, for me, that speaks volumes. And the performance that we saw out there tonight against an electric, dynamic, dual threat type of quarterback in Marcel Reed, a Texas A&M offense that averages, entering this game, averaged over 418 yards of total offense per game. They made a statement, Chip. So that is my thoughts on the defense. And I know eventually I'll let you set it up. We'll talk about the career days, back-to-back career day by Quintravion Wisner. 33 carries, 186 yards. Chip, the 33 carries, the most carries by a Longhorn back since Bijan Robinson in 2021. Certainly, Steve Sarkisian was able to put the offense on Trey Wisner's back, and he responded.
Yeah, and this game reminded me so much of 1995. If you go back to 1995, Texas came into that game with a quarterback with a bad ankle injury. James Brown got a heroic performance from Ricky Williams, who had 24 carries for 163 yards. You look at tonight's game, Texas comes in with a quarterback on a bad ankle and Quinn Ewers, who, again, played brilliantly in the first half and had a 26-yard run that really ignited the Texas offense, but got that heroic performance from Quintravion Wisner, 33 carries, 186 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, and a great defensive effort. Obviously, in 1995, the defense was outstanding. And tonight, the defense was dominant from start to finish. 3 fourth down stops, 2 sacks by Vernon Broughton, a strip sack by Trey Moore. Anthony Hill was all over the place. Michael Taft with a big interception. This was just a work of art, really, from the Texas defense. And as you said, Alfred Collins, when I asked him, hey, what kind of statement did this defense make? He said, best defense in the nation. Eric, now we obviously Texas is headed to the SEC title game. They're going to face Georgia, a team that punched them in the face in Austin, back in October, 30-15. The offense was just stuck in that game. Georgia dominated the game, dominated the offensive line, dominated Quinn Ewers, dominated Arch Manning. So it was, one of those nightmare games. And now here comes Texas with a chance to avenge that game against Georgia, Eric. They've got a week to get ready. Your thoughts on Texas coming out of this game with Georgia, a rematch on the line?
Chip, there's two thoughts that come to mind. I'm going to start with the Bulldogs. I think in the weeks that have passed since Texas and Georgia, these two teams last played, we've seen, to again quote Kirby Smart, as I've done probably 4 or 5 times on this, post-game recap, you're a week away from humility in the SEC. Well, I think Georgia has met that, head on, right? It's clear that, no disrespect to, this team, this year's Georgia team, it's not this juggernaut world beater of years past. And again, that's no disrespect to this year's Georgia team, which is really good. Again, I still think it's a compliment to the SEC more than, all right, well, no one's good, someone's got to win it. But I lead with that, Chip, as to say, despite the fact that Georgia came into Austin and won 30-15, it was not Texas's best showing. It was, I think it's pretty clear, Georgia's best showing of the season by far. Even that, Chip, was not a type of game that led you to believe that the Longhorns can't compete with the Bulldogs at any given time. I just don't believe that based upon the circumstances and kind of the way the rest of the season has played out. As I talked about in the early part of this recap, Trey Wisner's emergence and the run game's emergence over the last 2 weeks. You have to take my word for it. Steve Sarkisian, it was his own words when he talked about the level of versatility, that being able to run the football with the effectiveness that they're doing so, what that gives this offense. Chip, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I will ask it to you. Phrase me in the form of a question. I think it's pretty darn obvious to say that Texas is playing much better football over the past 2 weeks compared to the football they were playing in the weeks leading up to the Georgia game. Yes, you had the Mississippi State game, and that one even itself left, some room to be desired. But the Oklahoma game, while again on paper, I think went down as 34-3 win. That offense, with Quinn Ewers returning from injury, again, it was a little shaky. And obviously Quinn is in a different state health-wise. So I guess I'll send it back to you on this. What gives me confidence, or what would give me confidence if I were a Texas fan heading into next week, is this team's playing better football. And all three, well, I guess you had the block punt today. Maybe not all three phases, but they're playing good football. They're playing better football now than they were heading to the Georgia game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, they have a running game now, and that's big. And, teams, Georgia Tech was able to run on Texas, and they added an element tonight with Arch Manning coming in. The Arch package, I'm sure we'll get into. He had a 15-yard touchdown run to get things going on the same drive that Quinn Ewers had the 26-yard run that really kind of got things going after a rough 3-and-out by the Texas offense on its opening possession. But yeah, Eric, I mean, I think you look at the Texas offense now. They had 47 carries for 250 yards against Kentucky, and then 50 carries for 240 yards, 4.8 yards per carry tonight against the Aggies at Kyle Field in a crazy environment. I mean, we need to talk about this environment that Texas stared down, because it was 109,000 or whatever it was.
109-28.
109-28.
Third largest crowd in A&M history.
And they were frothing at the mouth. I mean, before the game, you and I are standing down on the field. They're introducing one A&M legend after another. Players, Jackie Sherrill It was
that win.
That win. I mean, it was a who's who of anyone who's ever made a play for A&M, whipping this crowd of 109,000 into a frenzy. They were skewering a Longhorn on a spit. I went and saw it. And RC Slocum cut the horns off the thing at 5 o'clock.
Boy.
I mean, it was insane. The atmosphere. There was even some over the crossing of the line with signs that were displayed, one of which involved a reference to Jake Ellinger that Michael Taft talked about. Go over to horns247.com and read that story. It's up right now. But it was over the top intense. And man, I thought the Texas Longhorns grabbed control of that situation. The defense started to turn that sound down. If not for the meltdown again in the third quarter, what is this, Eric? Against Kentucky last week, you had the meltdown, and again tonight against Texas A&M with the 93-yard pick six interception of Quinn Ewers, the fumble by Quinn Ewers, and then the fourth quarter blocked punt that gave A&M the ball at the Texas 19-yard line. And the Texas defense kept the offense out of the end zone. It was spectacular. So I thought the experience of Texas, the maturity, the poise, it showed up so big tonight. Everybody was picking A&M to beat Texas. You know, it seemed everywhere you looked. And Texas dominated. They were up 17-0 at halftime, and it felt worse than that. It did become a bit of a game in the second half, obviously with some self-inflicted wounds. But, you know, how would you describe the atmosphere, Eric? Because this place is it's formidable.
Chip, I'm going to take 20 seconds here. First off, again, as Chip said, go read what he just wrote, horns247.com, in reference to the tasteless, that's putting it lightly, Jake Ellinger sign. Guys, we got to be better than that. First off, the fact that sign is getting a lot of attention, rightfully so, it's overshadowing the fact that there was another sign making reference to Steve Sarkisian's sobriety, right? Like, we can be better than that. I just want to say that. That aside, the environment, you know, and I guess it's kind of an awkward transition from we spent about an hour down the field pregame. Didn't hear too much that I felt was out of bounds or crossed the line. You know, maybe people who were in the stands, maybe players entering Kyle Field heard differently, but at least from our vantage point being down on the field pregame, it just felt like everything that college football is about, Chip. I had several moments. I mean, listen, I will defer to you here because you've covered, you know, countless big games like this as someone who spent 6 years covering Group of 5 football. No disrespect to the G5s, but you don't quite get this in covering Group of 5, right? I had several moments where I just kind of took a play and was like, man, this is what people romanticize about college football, right? The pageantry, the rivalry, fans, and two teams meeting each other. And it shouldn't have been 13 years. You know, we can talk about all the stuff about the conference realignment. This showed me that these two teams should never go 13 years without playing one another, right? So There's that. So yeah, I mean, it was an incredible atmosphere. And I will say this, Chip, just to listen, I'm impartial. I'm not a Texan. I am wholly impartial. I did get a kick when I was down there the final few minutes of the game, and I got to witness the much speculated about speakers that were only on the Texas sideline. And I'll say this. I noticed that they pumped in the A&M fight song, or at least what I'm assuming is the fight song or something from the band to try and drown out Texas's band when they were playing. I could appreciate the gamesmanship, but that's a little lame, Chip. I mean, if you need a speaker to try and drown out something else, that's a little lame. But outside of that, great atmosphere, and it's what college football fans live for.
Yeah, I mean, this rivalry is so intense because, you know, you talk about Texas OU, that's two different states. Texas A&M is so intense because it's in state. There are family members, you know, houses divided, all of that. It is the talk of college football in the state of Texas the week that it happens, and it lived up to it. By the way, A&M has spent $34 million on that Aggie Park, which is now this massive tailgating area right across from the east side entrance into Kyle Field. It is spectacular. I mean, they've done an amazing job with it. It's, tents and tailgates everywhere. It used to be you'd have to go tailgate over at the baseball stadium here at Kyle Field. I mean, it was lame. Texas's tailgate scene was lame before Del Conte got there. So kudos to both schools. The tailgating scene is infinitely better 13 years later. But Eric, Texas has now won 3 in a row at Kyle Field, dating back to 2009. So A&M, got to pick it up. And here are the Longhorns in their first year in the SEC, and they're going to the SEC championship game. A&M has been in the league for 12 years, Eric. They've never been to the SEC championship game. The Aggies did not want the Longhorns in the SEC, and this is why. Because they showed up, came to your house, broke all your furniture, broke your dishes, took your women, and are headed to Atlanta to take on Georgia for a chance to win the SEC title in their first year in the league. That would be back-to-back conference championships, of course, the Big 12 last year, and they're trying to get it done in the SEC. In Texas, did I see, is a slight favorite.
Oh, we already got a line already?
We've already got a line. So
I will cover here while Chip is finding that line. I'll just give a quick thought there, kind of piggyback off what you said. Again, as someone who is wholly impartial, had never experienced this rivalry before, that has to be a major sticking point for A&M fans who, again, have been in this league for over a dozen years, never made an SEC title game. Texas does it in year one. Chip, you got that line ready to go?
Yes, the Longhorns open as a Come on now.
I mean, listen, I'll be interested because I don't know this.
1.5 point favorite.
There we go.
1.5. Texas, a 1.5 point favorite, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. So that tells you that Vegas thinks Texas is improved since the 30-15 loss at home. And Eric, is it just me, or did Georgia play its best game against Texas, and then since then has been an upset waiting to happen? I mean, they played well against Tennessee, but good God, 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech in Athens?
Chip, I don't think you're out of line in that assessment. And I kind of talked about it, right? That Georgia played its best football game of the year. And I don't want to come across as I'm being dismissive or disrespectful of the Bulldogs. However, we use that phrase, right? Oh, at Texas is everyone's Super Bowl. Well, there's no doubt that if you remember where these two teams were when they met, 7-8 weeks ago, whenever it was, most people were ready to, in essence, coronate Texas as the new big dog in the SEC. And Georgia rose up, as great programs do, as championship programs do, and said, nah, in order to, do things in this league, you got to beat the man. Use the old Ric Flair line. In order to be the man, you got to beat the man. They rose up for one game, 1 week, and put forth an excellent effort. And it wasn't even, Chip, let's call a spade a spade. It wasn't even a well-rounded effort in all three phases. Carson Beck didn't play his best game by any stretch of the imagination. Even the opportunities that they got from Texas's offensive ineptitude, Texas's defense put forth a heck of a fight several times. So that leaves me to believe, even though while, yes, they played their best game, it wasn't even their A game. And they were able to beat Texas because of the miscues of Texas. So as we open this with, if we believe Texas is playing better football entering next Saturday's game, well, yeah, that's going to give you a 1.5 point line. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Remember, in that Georgia game, this is the game where Quinn Ewers got benched with 4:43 left in the second quarter. Arch Manning came in. Arch Manning ended up suffering a strip sack that led to a field goal for Georgia. And then Quinn Ewers came back in the third quarter, played well, completed 7 of 10 passes to 2 touchdowns, cut the Georgia lead from 23-0 to 23-15, and it was too little, too late. Texas loses that game 30-15. Tonight, Eric, it did feel like the Texas offense and special teams were determined to show everyone how incredible the Texas defense is in the second half. When Quinn Ewers had the tipped pass, 93-yard pick six, the fumble, and, of course, special teams suffered the blocked punt, leaving it for the defense to clean up the mess, which they did. Eric, any final thoughts from Kyle Field before we get on the road at almost 1 a.m.?
Well, I will make it quick because you do reference that we got about a 2-hour drive back to Austin, Texas. Really going to kind of respond to, or I should say address this in my answering the questions column that'll be out tomorrow as far as the 7 pressing questions answering this game. If you go and take a look at those, the fact that Texas was able to, in essence, play against a lot of the strengths of A&M, to come out here with the type of win they did, that should give Horns fans confidence. So that's me answering that question, queuing up a little teaser to check out the answering the questions column, which will be out Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and we're waiting to find out how Kelvin Banks is doing. Yeah. Kelvin Banks left this game with what Sark called an ankle injury. That fair?
Yes, he did say ankle, sorry, yes.
And was replaced by Trevor Gooseby. And kudos to this Texas offensive line. They were fantastic with Kelvin Banks, without Kelvin Banks. Again, huge performance tonight. 50 carries, 240 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. They dominated the line of scrimmage, and Quintravian Wisner ends up with a massive performance. Go read Eric's story over at horns247.com. Check out his story on the Texas running game, Quintravian Wisner. Check out the snap judgments and helmet stickers, as well as the story about Michael Taft reacting to the sign referencing Jake Ellinger. And Jeff Howe's got coverage over there. And don't forget about the 75% off annual membership. This is the best offer of the year, and it's an extended Black Friday sale. What better time to get in on Horns 24/7? Signing day is December 4th. You've got the SEC championship game on December 7th. This is the time, and that offer will not last. It'll be gone before signing day. So get it now. Go over to horns247.com, click on the 75% off promo, and become an annual member for like $3, less than that, a month. Are you kidding me? For 12 months. And you're going to get VIP access to all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 Sports Network. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel, the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, so that you always know when Eric and I are, spewing infotainment your way. And, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to the flagship podcast. Eric, great job, my man. For Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. We'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith.